Raiders, and this is a wild one. Sources tell me and colleague Tom Pelissero that the Raiders have now agreed to terms with their new head coach, and it's Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. The deal is now expected to...
Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Hey, welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSPR is my Twitter handle. So check me out there. And Ryan Holmes is RHOM22. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. It's about 60% of you guys watching the show and not subscribing. You're watching anyway, so just click the button. I mean, it's so easy. So do that, and then check me out on Blue Sky as well. Right now, my blue check mark is under review. I'm not sure why. So who knows? I might be off Twitter. Who knows? Elon came and got me. But so check me out there as well. And we have a lot of stuff here talking about the Senior Bowl, Raiders, all the stuff like that. But I think the topic of the day is the press conference with the Raiders, the media, John Spytek, and then the head coach Pete Carroll. What are your thoughts about that, real quick? And we'll kind of break it down, piece by piece here.
I thought it was a solid introductory press conference.
It wasn't Jacksonville.
It's hard to lose.
It wasn't Jacksonville.
Yeah. It's hard to lose the press conference. I thought Spytek was good. He gave a lot of credit to the scouting department and the people that work for organizations that allow them to bring in talent. You could tell he has a background as a scout. It's very important to him. He wants to build through the draft. You heard him talk about that. He wants to find players that are willing to compete. So a lot of things that we talked about. I wish he would have spoke more. I wish there would have been some more questions around what it's going to look like. But Pete Carroll basically stole the show. Like he started talking and didn't really give the mic back. And you could tell Pete was fired up, that he wanted this opportunity. He relished this opportunity. He wanted to work for the Raiders. He talked about growing up in the Bay Area. He talked about Al Davis. And you could tell that, he was just chomping at the bit. I wonder what his wife was thinking last year when he was sitting on the couch and he wasn't working, but she's probably ready to get him out too. But yeah. It's going to be interesting. You heard him tell Max Crosby, tell everyone to get ready. We're going to compete. And it was a lot of the stuff you've heard from Pete Carroll when he was at USC, and you heard him in Seattle. Yep. Building competition in every position group room and letting the best guys win. So the Raiders are going to need to add talent to those rooms, and we'll see how long it takes to get up. He said they want to win now. So let's see if they're going to build the roster to win now. I still have questions of whether, long term over the next 3 or 4 years, what this roster is going to look like. I don't expect them to go into free agency and spend a ton of money, even though they have a ton of cap room. So how is he going to get this roster up and winning within a year or two? We'll see. Time will tell. Yeah,
I can see Pete just being in his house, just running and walking in circles, and his wife said, "You got to go coach something, or I'm gonna kill you." Saying stuff like that. So
he's probably got a big bucket of that double bubble, like baseball guy, like you see in dugouts.
I don't know how he has not shoot offs inside of his cheeks and that thing, boy. Listen, we had after you and I text back and forth about our thoughts about it, and I went back. I was at the gym today, and I left the corner, and I watched his introductory press conference at Seattle, just to kind of see, what I'm saying. And it's he's very consistent. I mean, he competition all the time. Wants to run the football, all those things like that. Wants to be physical, all those things that he was at Seattle. The same thing that he was at when he was in at USC. Like that's Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll wears it on his sleeve, so you can see it. You can see it from top to bottom with him. I'm not really, the press conference was what a press conference should look like. I wish the Raiders media would have geared more questions, like you said, to Spytech, because you're gonna have access to Pete. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna see Pete consistently. Spytech is gonna go into that office and that draft bubble and talking to Brady, talking to scouts, reviewing all 22, Senior Bowl, stuff like that. He's not going to be as accessible as he might do one interview with somebody else. Like, yeah, he won't be as accessible. So I would say definitely that. But he is professional. He is talked about his playing days. The interview that we talked about the other day is when the day he realized he got to Michigan but couldn't play at Michigan. Like, I mean, he was going to be a special teamer. He wasn't going to be a real big player on that team. But he knows. He sounds like he knows what he's doing. And I think for him, if he wants to make a big move, he has to. We all know he got to call Brady. He got to call Mark. But for the most part, I think the Raiders are in good hands. I don't see a situation here where I'm like really worried about what he's going to do. But again, like I always say, like this is still for his first time, calling the shots. So he has to go out there and make whatever moves he has to make. And I think the one thing that I like about it is he did talk about over and over again about being a collaboration, if you will. And yes, he's in charge, but he wants to hear from the scouts. He wants to hear from everybody else as well.
Yeah, most organizations are collaborations in most sports. It's not one guy making every decision. That's not how it works. You have a bunch of people with a lot of input. Um, Organizations discuss all the different avenues to improve their roster, and they decide on what they all feel is the best. It's rare that the GM is going to stand up and overrule everybody.
Yep.
But ultimately, every decision lies at the feet of the general manager, goes on his resume. As far as Spytek, I'm excited that he got a 5-year deal and Pete Carroll got a 3, so that they're not tied together for the same length of time. So there's a chance Spytek's here for the long run. And, they've had a ton of success drafting in Tampa Bay under Jason Light, and then obviously
Yeah.
with Spytek there. And then Tampa Bay's been aggressive. They've moved around in the draft. They've traded up. They've moved back. They've targeted specific players that fit what they're looking for, and they've gone and got. They didn't just sit and wait for their pick to come up. So that's what I'm excited about. Let's see this team move around. Let's see them be aggressive. Let's see them go get the right pieces. And we'll see what happens in the draft. Depending on what happens at the quarterbacks, at the top 2 guys, if they're not there, like, are they going to build the trenches? Does Pete Carroll want to build from the back forward? Does he want to build up the secondary like he did in Seattle? We'll see. It's going to be really interesting. And then obviously the Michigan ties you have with Spytek when you're staring at Will Johnson and Mason Graham and Josiah Stewart and all these guys at Michigan, and then the same intel Harbaugh has over with the Chargers. So
Yep.
It's going to be really interesting. But, I think Spytek here for the long term, I think he's going to outlast Carroll. Could be a good thing because they need to really hit on these draft picks.
Yep.
The biggest thing they need to do now is lock up some of those free agents because this team didn't have a lot of depth. They can't afford to lose 5 or 6 pieces off that defense and basically start over outside of Max and Christian.
There are some clear guys on this defense that I think everybody would probably agree that they should be able to fit the system and be able to come back and play for the Raiders. Some people like Moreg, I mean, Trevor Moreg should definitely be a guy.
Spillane should come back.
Spillane should come back.
Hobbs, I like Hobbs.
Would you if the Commanders let go of Bobby Wagner, would you be interested in Bobby Wagner for the 1 year?
I'd rather just have Spillane, younger player that can be there longer.
Makes sense. Cool.
And he's not leaving Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels to come play for the Raiders.
Okay, well, if they, I agree with you, but you never know. So the crash out, they calling it, everybody's crashing out because they had a conversation that Pete Carroll had a conversation with now I can't remember his name, Darrell Bevell. So everybody's crashing out about that. What are your thoughts about Darrell Bevell? I think I'm not sure how we feel about that. I have my feelings about it. What are you feeling about Darrell Bevell possibly being the OC of the Raiders?
Yeah, I'm torn here, and this was my fear. when we started talking about Pete Carroll coming in. Are they going to just bring in the old trick guys? Is it Darrell Bevel? Is it Gus Bradley? And we've heard a lot of Russell Wilson, which I don't love that either. Um, we'll see what Darrell Bevel learned. He's been in Miami the last 2 years. So, like, did he learn any of that 49ers system under Mike McDaniel? What are they going to bring in? Are they going to emphasize speed on the offense side of the ball? Or are they just going to go back to kind of how it was in Seattle, where you have this big bruiser back and Marshawn Lynch, run the football, play action, take some timely shots down the field, kind of more old school. Um, he's experienced. He's been around the league for a long time. He knows exactly what Pete Carroll wants. But this is again when people started talking about bringing in this young and upcoming head coach and waiting, the guy to groom. I said, pause that, like put the brakes on that. That's not going to happen here. And it sounds like if they go down this route of Darrell Bevel's not going to be the next coach of the Raiders. So this sounds like, again, what does success for Pete Carroll in the 3 or 4 year window look like? Because while we all want that young up and coming assistant, if they hire Darrell Bevel, then they're obviously going a different route. They're going with a veteran guy that's been around the league, and you just got to hope that he can get them to perform somewhere in the 10 to 15 range as far as offense, depending on what kind of quarterback they can get in there. If they finish in the bottom third of the league in offense, it's not a very inspiring hire.
Yeah, so I would say if they can, I think the move we want to see is just from where they are here, baby steps, crawling steps to the middle of the pack. I don't think they're going to be a top 5 offense. I think that's obviously unrealistic, but I do think if they can just move from that to that spot, I would say that would be a good thing for them. With everybody, it looks like people are going to make this move to running game and move to running the football a little bit more. I think we're seeing teams run the football a little bit more that could help them out. I don't have a problem with Russell Wilson coming as long as a quarterback is drafted. Like if they get Russell Wilson and we're sitting here and he's sitting here and he's a placeholder for Shador, placeholder for Cam, placeholder for maybe Dart down the line or somebody else. Like I can live with that part of it. I just don't want to be sitting here with, oh yeah, we had a really good draft, but Russell Wilson has a 2-year deal. Like that's not what that does not look good for us. With you look at around the league, it looks like we have some coordinators just signed. Johnny Morton just got signed to the Lions. There are some quality young dudes out there. I wish I could just call Pat Kerwin because he seems to know exactly who he's gonna pick or hire. But that being said, there are some good names out here, but hopefully they talk to a bunch of different names and not just say, hey, like you said, run it back. I can run it back on the offensive side of the ball because I think at the very least he is. All we can do is hope that his time around Mike McDaniel gave him some new perspective on the National Football League and how to throw the football down the field, and other ways of getting the ball to the playmakers quickly. Because what they do in Miami when everybody's healthy is get the ball out of their quarterback's hands and go ahead and get the ball to them quickly. So they can they can attack the secondary and get and make plays. So hopefully that's the case. Everybody everybody should grow professionally. And so I think all we can do is hope that he's grown professionally.
Well, if you want that, you don't want Russell Wilson because that's not where Russell Wilson's good at. I would say this with Russell Wilson. It's different last year when he went to Pittsburgh on basically a veteran minimum deal. They didn't have to pay him because the Broncos were paying him. Russell Wilson's not going to go work for free this year. Like if he starts commanding $30-40 million a year, I'm way out. I would rather just play Aiden O'Connell and go in the draft and get someone to challenge him or sign another veteran. If we're getting to that range, give me Sam Darnold if he becomes available. And I'm not a huge Sam Darnold guy either. So trying to get a year or two out of a guy that's in his mid to upper 30s and paying him a decent amount of money is counterproductive here, in my opinion. As far as the offensive coordinator, I don't know if you saw the piece on the Rams guy. His name's Nate Scheelhaase or something like that.
Yeah.
Young guy. Tampa Bay is basically interviewing everyone on Sean McVay's staff right now, and they've hit 2 home runs as far as coordinators. I'd like to at least talk to this guy. There was a piece of you, I think it ran on Sunday. It was either Saturday or Sunday on ESPN. You can
Yeah.
find it on Twitter, but it was like a 5-minute video, and he talked about what McVay has these guys do. And he's currently the offensive assistant passing game coordinator for the Rams. Is like basically Sean McVay will sit down with these young coaches, and they interviewed Zach Taylor, Zach Robinson, um, and there was two other guys that came off the staff. I'm drawing a blank right now that are offense coordinators or head coaches in the NFL, and they all did
Yeah.
this. And it was basically like he'll sit down on a Monday or Tuesday morning, and he tells these guys, okay, these are the routes I want to run against these defenses. Go draw up the plays. So these guys have to go sit down all night, Tuesday night till midnight, draw up the formations, draw up the routes. Then they have to talk to the team on Monday in the meetings about it. Different stems, alignments, route combinations, and then they have to say, okay, versus over front cover 3, this is what we want to run. And if it's a different defense, run something else. Like it's very detailed on what they're doing. So like, give me one of these young guys that can come in here and do it over Darrell Bevell. Just my preference. Like I think Nick Kazi or Callie is the other guy who was with the Patriots and now he's been with Sean McVay. He's being interviewed by the Texans. He interviewed, I believe, with Tampa Bay as well. So I think there's 3 or 4 guys on that staff in LA with Sean McVay that are getting interviews around the league. The Raiders need to at least talk to some of these guys and not just do the interview 2 Rooney guys, hire Darrell Bevell. So like I want to see Pete expand here and go out and try to find. He's already fired Darrell Bevell. Let's not forget that. Like he's fired this guy before. So like why just bring him back without talking to other people?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, that's what everybody in the league is pretty much going after. So it to me it makes sense to go ahead and do that. But it is old habits die hard. So we'll see. We'll see if he actually does that. I mean, at the very least, have the conversation to pick the brain and steal some stuff like Al Davis used to. Like, so give me, but I mean, like, to me, like, give these like I don't know who else they're gonna talk to because the only Bevell's the only guy we heard of, right?
He's the only one, yeah. So far on the offensive side,
offensive side of the ball. So that's what I'd be worried about as well, too. So, I mean, I understand the concern. Totally get it. I mean, you totally get it. But and then you talked about Russell Wilson and the money. Like, yeah, the money situation. I don't know how he could look at anybody.
He's not playing for free.
He's not playing for free. So I gotta see how you gotta find out how much unlimited cash Mr. Unlimited wants. As far as that goes. I know people are already trying to push him to the Raiders. So that's it. You have Sam Darnold, a younger option. Don't love that either. He is he has a lot of Jameis Winston in him. Like he turns the ball over a lot. Like that's a lot to try to overcome in some of these games and stay competitive. But it'd be a totally different offense than what he ran in Minnesota. I think the Raiders are definitely gonna try to run the football way more.
Not if they run the Rams system.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't.
That's where our panel came from.
Yeah, I mean, he also doesn't run the ball a lot. So I do think that like there are people who run that system who run the ball a little bit more than he does. Could be wrong about that, but I just when I see the attempts, I just see him always doing 35, almost 40 attempts a game. The Russell Wilson thing, as far as like the passing part of it, is like it's hard to like he's difficult because the middle of the field is gone. Like when you're in your passing game, and that's very difficult to deal with when you're trying to beat some of these really good teams. That like he's just throws the ball to the outside all the time. And your biggest offensive threat is a guy who probably works inside, and Brock Bowers.
And you need vertical guys, and you need big physical 50-50 catch guys, which the Raiders don't really have outside at wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Myers is a good wide receiver, but I wouldn't call him like a contested catch 50-50 jump ball guy. You need George Pickens and DK Metcalf and Mike Williams, who he had in Pittsburgh this year. You need those big physical guys. We'll talk about some of those guys from the Senior Bowl after today's first practice.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that as well. Yeah. So, anything else about the DC part of it? Who do we what are some of the DC candidates for the Raiders? I know they got the one guy from Seattle. That was the only guy I heard of so far.
So they've interviewed Rob Leonard on Monday, the in-house defensive line coach, and I've heard a lot of people say the Raiders blocked him from interviewing for other teams. They want to keep him. That's not necessarily true. They can block him from a lateral move. So if other teams are wanting to talk to him as a defensive line coach, they can block him. If they wanted to talk to him as a defensive coordinator, the Raiders couldn't. So clearly he was getting interviews for defensive line, not DC. He's an option. Patrick Graham, we've heard that name, although he just interviewed today with the Jaguars after not getting the head coach job. He interviewed for the DC. So he might just join Liam Cohen's staff as a DC there. And then we've heard of Carl Scott, who's the defensive passing game coordinator, who's with the Seahawks. He's a young guy. He's 39. He coached under Nick Saban. He was a secondary coach at Alabama for a few years. Then he worked under Pete Carroll for 1 year, maybe 2 years. And then this past year, he worked under Mike McDonald. So, like, he's the young up-and-coming guy. If he can bring some of that cover seven, that man match stuff that you saw that Alabama ran, and then mix in some of the stuff that, the scheme that Mike McDonald runs that he brought over from Baltimore is a very good defensive scheme. So, like, if he's going to run that kind of defense, then I'm all for it. Like, bring that guy in. Let's play some man. Let's switch up who's coming. Let's confuse offensive lines. Let's get free rushers. Really aggressive style defenses. I'd be all for that if they want to bring in Carl Scott, if he runs that kind of defense. We don't know. He hasn't been a defensive coordinator to my knowledge, so we don't know what he would do. And we don't know what Rob Leonard would do. Honestly, he's been a defensive line coach. We have no idea if he would just keep the system that Patrick Graham had, or he has completely other ideas of how to run a defense.
So I'm surprised they even let that out as far as like the video that they did. I think the with the Rams guys, because I'm thinking in their head like this Sean really want people to know that, but I think for them that gives an opportunity to get their faces out there so people can see because I mean I know that is something that
I think Kevin O'Connell was one of them. There was a fourth guy. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, so I think that I think it's great for those. I think it's great. So maybe that's why those guys can hit the ground running. You know what I mean? When they get to teams, so and all of a sudden just go boom and the offense goes.
I'll send it to you. I'll find it. I'll send it to you. It's good to watch. It's only like 5 minutes long.
So right now I'm on this site that tracks all the interviews. So we interviewed Darrell Bevel on the 28th. It says we mentioned Bro Hardigree, who was mentioned as a candidate. I don't know what that was. I don't know what that would be about. I'm not sure why we were interviewing Bro Hardigree. And then we interviewed. I said mentioned as a candidate. Another mentioned as a candidate would be David Shaw. Yeah, that would be really fun to watch. David Shaw.
You like running a football and punting.
Yeah, please hurt me, please. And then you have Rob Leonard, who was interviewed on the 27th. Carl Scott has been requested to interview, so we'll see if they block or whatever. And then you have Patrick Graham, who is in play to stay. They put him in that status as well. So it should be interesting. It should be interesting to see what happens there. We'll definitely have our eyes and ears open for that. On the older side, I mean, I don't know if you you might not like this candidate. I kind of do like this candidate. I wouldn't mind seeing Steve Wilkes get an interview. Just to see if you're gonna do a veteran guy. Like I would like to see Steve Wilkes. I guess I would be okay if Patrick stayed. I just would like something like just give me two. Like Pete is older guy, knows what he wants. I get all that. So just have him just surrounded by two young guys who are really hungry, who can put in the hours and give us something that the league hasn't seen yet, and we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, definitely. And you heard him at his press conference. He said he wants guys that are familiar with how they do things. He wants guys he hasn't worked with before, and he did talk about wanting some young up and coming minds. So like, if they could get Darrell Bevel to do a lateral move and come over and be like assistant head coach, quarterback coach, something like that, I'd like that. I would like them to go a different route than him at offensive coordinator. If they do hire him as offensive coordinator, I wouldn't get my hopes up that he's going to flip this offense around. I've seen a lot of people throwing out, well, he taught Ben Johnson how to call plays. If you've ever watched Darrell Bevel call plays and Ben Johnson call plays, they're completely different animals. So I wouldn't lean into that too much.
Yeah, so we'll see about that. I think that's pretty much it as far as press conference goes. Today was day one. I don't know if you have anything else, Ryan, but today is day one of the Senior Bowl. So that's always fun to talk about some of these guys. I guess Dylan Gabriel is the next Randy Johnson. I mean, he can throw the ball so fast that 75 miles an hour, the record, I guess. I don't know what that is. I feel like one thing I feel like definitely watching it is I feel like people are trying to push Dylan Gabriel on me. Like I think they really talk about him a lot, and I'm just like I don't. I mean, if I'm wrong about Dylan Gabriel, then I'm wrong. But I just don't see him as a frontline starter for a team. I mean, I just don't. I don't see that.
No, and you sent me that about the ball velocity, and it came from some like random website I've never heard of. I wouldn't trust that. Like,
Mm.
there's the Zebra, and there's a couple other that put out the official speeds and stuff today from the Senior Bowl. I'll have to see if I can find that online, but that would be like he doesn't throw the ball 75 miles an hour. There's no one in the league that really does that. We've seen him on tape, we've seen him on the field. Like he doesn't have a big arm, so like I don't trust that number at all. And to be honest, watching the Senior Bowl practices today, none of these quarterbacks stood out. You know, it wasn't a day where they asked them to do a lot, but like none of them really showed much. And everyone is just trying to find quarterback three because I think the top two have kind of separated themselves. So everyone's running to find who the next guy might be, and there's really no clear cut number three guy. It depends on what you prefer. Like if you want a veteran guy who can come in and spread the ball around and be a point guard and get the ball in and out of his hands, I guess you like Dylan Gabriel. He measured at 5'10". You know, there's not a lot of guys that can do
Yeah,
that unless Pete wants a left-handed Russell Wilson. But I would say Russell Wilson threw a way better deep ball than Dylan Gabriel does.
yeah,
Um, so we'll see. I didn't like any of the quarterbacks today, but again, it was day one. We'll see what day two and day three look like. But there were some standouts that I did come away kind of liking. You're basically restricted to what you see on TV, so there may have been stuff happening that wasn't televised that maybe we didn't see, but just based on the live reps. And there wasn't a lot of one-on-one reps today either to really stand
yeah.
out. So I don't have a ton, but I probably have five or six guys on each team that kind of stood out.
Yeah, no question about that. So yeah, I mean, I think last year too. I don't want to hold too much over these quarterbacks too. It is, last year Bo Nix and Penix did not do well, and this Penix ended up leaving early as well. In that situation. So I'm not gonna go nuts about that. Jackson Dart was there as well. I think Jackson Dart is a guy who people are gonna because of he has the look of the quarterback, of the NFL quarterback physically. But I would just say for me, like he's just the tape is all over the place, and it's just he's. I mean, the worst thing you could be is late with the ball. Actually, you could be worse than that. But if when you're late with the ball, and it's kind of shows up consistently wherever I look when I'm watching him play.
Yeah, to me, it's accuracy with him. Like, can he fit the ball? Can he lead receivers? Can he get into tight windows? The offense that Lane Kiffin runs at Ole Miss is spread out. There's a lot of
Um,
easy throws, a lot of screens,
yes.
a lot of bubble screens, a lot of quick throws. You don't see him driving the ball down the field, like making NFL type throws. And when I watch a
Mhm.
quarterback play, and I think I was sending you a message about Cam Ward and Short Centers back in like October, like I only count like what NFL throws might look like. So like the bubble screens and all that stuff, I don't even watch that. Like, don't give me the stats. Like there might be five or six throws in a game where a guy has to make an NFL throw, and can he make those throws? And then what are his traits? And
Yeah.
Jackson Dart to me, it's funny. I don't know if you saw the NFL.com piece they did on today on Jackson Dart. You want to guess at who the NFL comp was for Jackson Dart on NFL.com?
Uh,
Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew was the comp today.
hey, you know who the comp is for Shador?
Uh,
It's Teddy Two Gloves. See,
I
that's
could
who
see
the
that.
yeah. I saw that. I saw that one today too. So I was like, oh damn, Teddy Bridgewater.
I think it's
it's
a little better than that, but I
I
could
think
see it.
I yeah I think I can see the I can hope that he's better, but I could see him if he was like that. It wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, listen, we all know who quarterback three is. It's up for grabs. It's all up to them to kind of go ahead and grab it and take it. Like, you know what I mean? I think the kid they brought the kid in from Canada. He looked lost today. the Maple Rifle, whatever they want to call him, his nickname. So good. He looks like that dude from Rocky 3 or Rocky 2, whatever, whichever one the Russian came in. He looks like that guy. So we'll see if he can get his feet under him. But that's what it is as far as that goes. So we got some questions here. So Mike from Oakland wants to know what is the position of need, like the order of it, like as far as like DT, offensive line, stuff like that. I think one would have to be quarterback, obviously. So I'll put that down. And then after that would probably be what do you think as far as the most important of position groups that they should be looking for in the draft?
We're talking about it today. Now, this is before free agency. This is
Yeah,
before they
true.
re-sign anybody. I would
100%,
say
100%.
defensive line, whether you want to go defensive tackle or edge.
Yep.
They're short there because right now Malcolm Kuntz is a free agent, Adam Butler's a free agent, Caleb Von Chason's a free agent. And you really just basically have, well, they're great players and Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. Like you don't have any depth there until you
Yeah.
re-sign those guys. So until they do that, I would say defensive line. I would say corner. They definitely need another corner in that room. I think safety, because right now Trayvon Merrick's a free agent, Marcus Epps is a free agent. You basically have Polamalu and Chris Smith and Trey Taylor. So until the Raiders start signing some of their own, we won't really know. And then
No.
obviously
Yeah.
linebacker, if Spillane and Diablo don't come back, then who are the linebackers on this team? So I think there's more holes on the defense, although this team needs offensive players until they
Mhm.
re-sign their own. Um, then I would obviously go offensive interior on the offensive line, and they still need a
Mhm.
wide receiver.
Wide
They still
receiver.
need a wide receiver or
Yeah.
two, and they need at least one running back. So
Yeah. So
there's a lot of
everything
holes on this team.
there is, and then like I think is like I said, you have to kind of pick. You kind of have to pick. Hey, we can solve this in free agency, and then maybe we can do the other thing in the draft. So we'll have to see if that is what you can do. I have your list here. Of let's see, the Senior Bowl standouts in the American roster. So we could talk about Carson Vinson, and then from Alabama A&M, you got Walter Nolan, who I've always loved Walter Nolan. I remember when he was being recruited. I love Walter Nolan. And Jalen Royals, I saw him play live. Billy Bowman, and then we got Maxwell Harrison. Can we just not maybe not break down all of them, but like for the Raiders' needs, what do you think about some of these guys?
Yeah, the two defensive tackles jump out immediately. Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss, is just under 300 pounds. So he measured 6'3" and 2'8", 293 pounds. You saw quickness, you saw twitch, you saw an explosive first step as a pass rusher. And to get a guy on the inside that can win and win consistently, get to the quarterback, is huge. And you saw him do that. Now, the question is, the production didn't really match. I think he had 6.5 or 7 sacks this year at Ole Miss, which is still a good number on the inside. But over the course of his career, you'd like to see, with the physical tools he has, you would expect a little bit more production. But he's a guy that's like a late first, early second. Like if he falls into the top of the second round, the Raiders have a chance to get him. Pairing him up on the inside with Christian Wilkins would be a home run. Um, Cam Jackson or Cameron Jackson out of Florida is a bigger body defensive tackle. He measured at 6'6" and 4/8, 339 pounds with 34-inch arms. He's a big dude, but he moves well. He showed some pass rushing moves. He was able to win some one-on-ones on the inside, get to the quarterback in the one-on-one drills, and he's a big guy that you could hopefully plug in, and he could possibly be that nose tackle. But he's not just a two-down player. He showed the ability to win a one-on-one to where you could possibly keep this guy on the field in pass rushing situations. Um, the offensive lineman out of Alabama A&M, like first just looking at him, you're like, this guy looks the part. He's big, he's physical, he's in great shape. The measurables are there. Carson Vinson measured 6'6" and 7'8", so he's almost 6'7", 314 pounds, with 35-inch arms. So if Tom Cable does become the offensive line coach here for the Raiders, he kind of has a minimum. He's looking for like 34-inch arms. We all remember the Brandon Parker draft pick in the third round, but Carson Vinson dominated everyone that lined up across from him today. So coming from that small HBCU, I believe Alabama A&M is, and then just to be able to dominate. And then the end practice, they lined him up against Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, and he whooped him.
Mhm.
So just the one-on-ones, it's a good body. There's length, there's bend, there's athleticism. Like that would be a good guy, developmental tackle for the Raiders to try to get somewhere in the middle rounds. He was impressive, and I've always liked Jalen Royals. The reason I put him on the list is like I didn't realize how strong this dude was. Like his lower half is built. He looks like a running back. He almost looks like Debo Samuel. He's 5'11" and he measured 210 pounds, but that lower body and just be able to the quickness, he's going to run well at the combine. So you're getting an inside slot guy that's physical, can get yards after the catch. So we'll see what he does. But he was impressive today in a couple of reps he got. Um, Bowman, I've always liked Bowman. He's undersized. He's tiny. He's 5'9", 198. He's got really short arms. They're 29 inches.
Yeah.
But he made a couple plays on the ball. He's fast. He could run. He plays way bigger than his size. He gives me some Antoine Winfield type vibes, kind of that
Okay.
undersized, but it can still be a playmaking safety. Like most of these guys are going to go in the second or third round. And then Hairston just made plays all day. Again, undersized at 5'11", 179 pounds. But I wrote a couple of words next to him. I wrote compete and active. And those are things you like to see out of a corner.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, I do like that team. I like the national roster. This is like some of the guys that I love too. So I mean, Mike Green, I believe from Marshall led the nation in sacks. I believe he's a fantastic edge rusher. Can do a lot. Can do a lot. And I think when you go to a small school like that one, I think you want to be a guy who can actually show he could do it in the big stage. I think he can definitely do that. We all know Michigan played on a really good Joshua Stewart. He played on a really good offense, a really good defensive line. So I like his ability to get off, be able to get to the quarterback, and we'll see if he has that bend to get around the edge in the NFL. And my absolute favorite defensive tackle is Aeneas Peebles. I love this dude. Like I just watch him and his hands go as he tries to go after the quarterback, and seeing the defensive line, seeing the offensive lineman just getting in front of him, and he just slaps hands away, and then makes his move to the court, makes his move to the inside or outside to get to the quarterback. I love him a lot. Um, and you always come up with a good offensive lineman. How's the kid from North Dakota State? Because you always come up with some. I remember I was watching some of the I think Lennon Dickerson was a guy you liked a lot too, and watching him play for the Eagles.
Yeah, Gray Zabel, interior offensive lineman at North Dakota State. Now he played left tackle at North Dakota State, but the words I wrote down for him were balance, strong lower half, and anchor. He's big. He's 6'5", 316 pounds. The arm length is a little short, 32 and 2/8. So not quite what you're looking for at a left tackle. And if Tom Cable comes over, clearly not. But this guy moved around. He played left guard, center, and right guard. So depending on what the Raiders decide to
Yeah.
do with Jackson Powers Johnson and Dylan Parham next year, we'll see.
Can I give you a quick story about that? Because I got a couple of folks who
Yeah.
went to who were there who were at the Senior Bowl. Got a couple of boots on the ground. They said that they moved him from tackle to guard just today, and like it was like nothing. It was like smooth as hell. Like
Dominated.
he looked really good. So I think that's a good thing too. Versatility on the offensive line is huge for any team.
Yeah, I think if you're the Raiders and you want him, you have to take him top of the second round. I don't think he gets it to your third pick. I don't think he's going to get to the first round, but if you want him, he's going to go in
Yeah,
the second.
no question.
Um, you mentioned Mike Green and Josiah Stewart, and I keep thinking about what did the defenses in Seattle look like? They all had that Leo position, that hybrid
Yeah,
outside linebacker, undersized guy, that Uchenna Nwosu is what I wrote next to Josiah Stewart's name. Like
yeah.
USC guy, went to the Chargers, went there, undersized at 6 foot 248. But like if they're gonna run a defense similar to what they did there, him and Mike Green both fit that Leo role. Um, Next to Peoples, you know what I wrote down? I wrote quick, twitchy. Is this guy John Randall? Like, I don't know if he's John Randall, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he was really
I like
fast
him a lot,
inside.
man. I like him a lot, dude.
Um, I really like the corner Quincy Riley out of Louisville. Again, not the biggest guy, 5'10", 192, but I wrote patient, good feet, very good man corner. So the Raiders go to a defense that's very man heavy. This guy could fit in. He could play inside. He could play outside. Um, Tez Johnson was another guy. He's tiny, like 5'9", 156. I thought Gerald McNeil, Old Brown, or potentially Tutu Atwell, like one of those guys. But he kept winning. They tried to press him today, and he got off press, and he was able to create separation at the top of the route, and he flies. Um, we'll see there. And a couple other guys, just real quick. And I wrote a couple comps, like Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. 6'3" and 6'8", 217. He's a big physical guy. Now my questions are long speed, twitch, but I wrote this guy could be Michael Pittman Jr., like big physical guy that can win kind of in that intermediate area. I don't know if he's going to take the top up of a defense. The one guy I wrote down and I didn't put in the tweet was Darian Porter out of Iowa State. Now, if you think of Pete Carroll defenses, they have big, long, physical corners. And this guy does that. He's 6'2" and 3/8, 197 with 33-inch arms. I wrote he's got length, he's got size. I questioned the hips, and I wrote or zone corner over man corner. And then I go look at who the top speed guys were, and guess who was in the top 5 today as far as speed at the Senior Bowl was Darian Porter, ran over 21 miles an hour. So this guy answers the long speed question. Now, the hips are a little tight. You know, moving a body around that's 6'2", 200 pounds is kind of tough against some of these quicker wide receivers, but he's got a chance. And then one other guy was Anthony Belton, the offensive lineman at North Carolina State, a big, physical, massive guy, 6'5" and 3/8, 345 with 34 and 5/8 inch arms, and he dominated too. Now his tape was inconsistent. I watched a little of it back in like November, and I was kind of like, I don't know. The consistency wasn't there, but today he had a really good day, and he's probably somewhere in that 3rd round bucket. But the number of offensive linemen and defensive linemen that stood out at the Senior Bowl is good. Like, it's a good problem to have if the Raiders want to build through the trenches, because they're going to have a ton of options. Now, we'll see what the quarterbacks and the wide receivers look like as we get deeper into the week. We didn't really get a chance to see the running backs or linebackers much today, so that's why I don't have them on the list. Hopefully we see a little bit more of that tomorrow. I want to see these running backs and pass protection. I love those drills where the linebackers tee up and they got to come and see who wants to step in and who wants to smoke and who doesn't. Because that'll tell me that. I kind of liked RJ Harvey a little bit today out of UCF. You kind of saw him in the passing game.
Yeah.
Built low to the ground, but showed some shiftiness in a couple of routes he ran.
Yeah, I mean he was a guy who stood out as well. I mean, especially in the where the check down game, or you can call it a screen game, stuff like that for him as well. So some good things there. I mean, like I know Tez Johnson also from Oregon did some things today. People were impressed with him. He is very slight. to say very slight. So maybe he has that that issue where he really can't put on any weight. So we'll see how he goes. I know some people were trying to compare him to Tank Dell last year. I don't know if I know that one, but like I'm just, for the most part, I mean, like I said, he is a guy who definitely showed up and played well.
I would add this on Tez Johnson. It is surprising that how shifty and how fast and twitchy he is. He only averaged like 10 yards a catch. So it was like 83 catches for 890 something yards. Like, you'd think a guy like that would be more 15 to 20 yards a catch, but then Oregon doesn't throw the ball down the field. They're very, very short as far as air targets.
Yeah, 100%. They are. Everything is within like 10 yards of the line of scrimmage out there in Uncle Pete's and Uncle Phil's land out there in Oregon. You did say who did I'm reading something really quickly about Jake off subject, but Jake Peetz. Is that somebody who the Raiders were interested in, or is that somebody who a fan just put that out there?
I saw a report by someone up on Seattle that he would be a dark horse. As a potential offensive coordinator. Now, he's worked at a couple different spots. He actually was with the Raiders on Jack Del Rio's staff from 15 to 17. I believe Alabama, and then offensive coordinator at LSU, and then he's been in Seattle. So, and I think he worked under McVay too for I think 2 years. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but he would be potentially another one. He's a younger guy. He's 40, 41, 42 years old. So we'll see. It is interesting on the Darrell Bevell front. Usually you see teams bring in a couple of guys, knock the interviews out, and then the last guy they bring in, or the third or fourth guy, is the guy they're going to hire.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Bevell went first. and the
Yeah.
Raiders still have to interview at least two, if not three more candidates. So we'll see what happens on the offensive coordinator front, unless they've already
Yeah.
done it and we don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like, hey, like Pete, like I mean, I like working in Miami. If you can throw me an interview here, maybe I can get a job somewhere else. I mean, if you're not going to hire me, I mean, favors like that have been done before, so we'll have to see about have to see about that. I mean, I just want to just expand. I just want to see younger names. That's it. I think that's all we. I think that's all we want to see. Anything else from day one here? Because I think we saw some good things. For the quarterbacks, I know that nobody really impressed. I know it looked like Milroe was having a really hard time. And I think that that is something where I'm like, I kind of expected that. I think again, let's just see how these guys build through the week. Remember last year when we had the quarterbacks that did not shine, some at all really. Bo Nix got a little bit better during the week, but Penix he ended up leaving for his injury and he really wasn't a great it wasn't really great, and then he ended up going to the Falcons early in the draft, so it didn't really matter. And anything about the quarterbacks you wanna run through?
Nothing yet. We'll see what they look like over the next 2 days. Did you catch Max Crosby's podcast today?
I did not. What good old Max have to say?
So they talked about him being at the facility yesterday, and he had a lot of great things to say about Pete Carroll and John Spytek. He did keep saying, I'm going to continue to talk to them. So it sounded like he does want a contract extension here, but he had a lot of great things to say about potentially playing under Pete Carroll. Talked about Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch told him what a great opportunity would be, how he'd love to work on or play under Pete Carroll. Max addressed the trade rumors and kind of asked like where they're coming from. Like he's never said it. Like he's happy in Las Vegas, that he doesn't want to leave. At some point, he mentioned the fans. He mentioned like fans from other teams start talking about it. And he did talk about the faction of Raider Nation that kind of turned on him. And he's seen the tweets like trade this guy, get him out of here, blah blah blah. And he kind of was like taken aback by that and talked about how like I wanted to be a Raider since the day he stepped in the building. And he's all Raiders, and like he kind of tried to put to bed some of the trade rumors, but he didn't come out and say like 100% I'm going to be here. It was more like we're going to take it step by step. Like we need to talk more, but he did have a lot of great things to say. I thought it was a positive for the Raiders, kind of just the way he addressed that on the podcast today.
Do you think he gets the contract?
Oh, absolutely. John Spytek. He said that John Spytek, the minute he got the job, the first thing he did was text Max.
Okay.
So
Max will
he's
be back.
definitely been in contact. He's going to get it. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of how much and when they're
If
going to do
you're
it.
Yeah, and like to me, it's like if you're not paying a big time quarterback, like let's just make sure at the very least you have, your star defensive end, come back. And I think for me, like, when I look at Max Crosby, um, I think he went a little bit too strong with AP last year with the I want AP here, whatever. But I know he's trying to back his guy. But I think with Pete and hopefully the new defensive coordinator that we can settle down on some snaps. I want to see his production not like be hyper incredible after the first 8 games and then kind of tail off because he's playing too many snaps. When I saw that, I knew he played more snaps than most defensive ends or the defensive players. But then when I saw it I think because like Amazon does the best job right now of broadcasting these games, I think, and that's just me. They give you some really good stuff. When he said that he has like 500 more snaps than some of the other players, it's just like that's just way too many. And I want him on the field, obviously, but I want him on the field for the entire 17 game schedule.
Yeah, and that'll be up to whoever the new coaching staff
Yeah.
is once he signs the contract to kind of talk him into that and try to be his best in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And not leave
Exactly.
it on the field. And then injuries,
Exactly.
like he's been dinged up a little bit the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and that you want him for the long haul, especially if you're about to commit another big contract to him. You don't want him to keep getting hurt every season, so he's going to have to back up a little bit. But that's not how Max is. Max is 100% all the time. He thinking back to what I saw on the podcast, he did mention, he's like, I'm here at 6 a.m. every day. I'm working out every day. I'm trying to get better. I don't know where these rumors are coming from. I don't know where they're starting. And he did
Mm-hmm.
mention he thought they were coming from fans of other teams that want him. Um, so we'll see. John Spytek
that could be
literally said
smart.
you can't let good players out of the building. You especially
Yes,
can't let pass rushers out of the building. So I would find it a hard time for him to take this job and turn around and trade like the
Matt
best player on
Crosby.
the team. Like that doesn't
Yes,
make any sense. If
that'd
Pete
be
Carroll wants to win, and he talked about winning now,
yeah.
you cannot trade Max Crosby to do that.
You cannot. Jim wants to know. Jim from Davis wants to know. Davis, California. Shout out to Jim. He wants to know about what are your. Do you think that Jackson Dart has the arm strength to play at the next level? He knows he has issues, but does he have the arm strength to play at the next level?
That's the question. What system is he going to get into? You heard
That's true.
about a lot of that today on the broadcast. Daniel Jeremiah brought it up that arm strength is a concern amongst scouts for Jackson Dart, along with accuracy. So those are two things that are probably aren't great. I think Jackson Dart in the public view is probably rated a little bit higher than he is by scouts. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And then Zach wants to know about Milroe's bad day. Do you think that's going to hurt him? I think it's early in the process for Milroe. I'm not really. I wouldn't jump off that Milroe plane. To something that you just said, I think NFL scouts have Milroe higher than average fans do. I've watched intently and heard people talk about it, and people are more excited in the NFL circles around Milroe than I think the average fan is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think again, when you start talking about traits, arm strength is a check, ability to be creative with the ball, and he's an elite runner, check. His issues are going to be like being able to put touch on the ball. Can he layer the ball that we talked about, like accuracy? And those are things like they're going to have to get coached up with him. But the ability to be dynamic. We saw Justin Fields go 11. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields is probably little bit better player in college, but like I don't see Jalen Milroe falling out of the top like 40, 50 picks. Like he's going to go somewhere late first, early to mid second, to whatever team wants to take him. But you are going to have to adjust your offense. It's going to be almost like Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson. You're going to have to be able to be creative with the running back in the running. You're going to have designed runs for him to use his legs. If you ask him to be a pocket packer and just drop pocket passer and drop back and read defenses and go progression 1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
don't take him because that's not what he is.
yeah,
So like
exactly.
you're going to have to play to his strengths, and you're going to need an offensive coordinator that's creative enough to do that, and you're going to have to be
Mhm.
patient. Um,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Sandy from Fort Lauderdale wants to know. Shout out to Sandy. Thanks for listening and watching. Wants to know what does Sanders do best?
To me,
Yes, yeah.
it's his
To us.
ability. Yeah, to me, it's from the neck up. It's his ability to read defenses and understand pre-snap what's going on and just
Mhm.
be able to get the ball and make the right decisions. He's a very good decision maker, which is important. I think
Yeah.
he's got good accuracy, which is important. Um, it's funny. I saw a stat, and I went down this rabbit hole on Sanders maybe 3 weeks ago, and it talked about how his average time to throw was over 3 seconds, and how he held the ball too long and he gets sacked. But if you actually break it down, like he was getting the ball out in 1.7, 1.8, 2.0 a ton this year. But there were plays where he tried to break the pocket and got outside and kind of drifted and waited and it kind of drove that number up. But there are plenty of instances of him getting the ball in and out of his hands. He's just going to have to do it more consistently. And I think at Colorado, he was trying to just hit the home run a lot because they needed to put up a lot of points with how that defense was playing. The offensive line wasn't great. They didn't run the ball that well. He had some weapons vertically down the field, but I do think if you get him in, if you're bringing in Daryl Bevel and you're running kind of this West Coast run the ball play action, I think Sanders can be a very good player in that. And
Yeah.
you're asking him to basically just be accurate and get the ball out quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can do that. Now, if you ask him to be in a vertical game where you're trying to huck the ball down the field and you're taking vertical shot after vertical shot, he's probably not your guy. So it's going to depend on the offense that you run if you're going to take Shador Sanders.
Jeff from San Diego. We got a couple more left. Jeff from San Diego wants to know about can we finally move on from Andre James? And do you see Chason and the Dion? Do we see Chason and Dion Divine Diablo
Divine
coming
Diablo.
back? Can't talk. Um, I don't want the. I mean, like hopefully I don't really see Diablo. I don't really like. I'm not really a big fan of Diablo. We have to see what Peter Carroll thinks about that one. Chason, I think we talked about him a little bit. It could be a little bit overrated as far as what he did. But I mean, you can have him just be a rotational cheap pass rusher if you want to do that. And then Andre James again. I'm just gonna quote what I heard somebody say from on the NFL Sirius Radio, which I can't stop listening to, which is a problem. Is that the Raiders have three centers on their team, and the best one and the worst one is their starting center right now. I mean, that's just there's no reason for him to be starting over Jackson Powers or Parham.
Let's see who the offensive line coach is that comes in here. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong here, but didn't Andre James come in under Tom Cable? Originally, Tom Cable was on Gruden's staff. Just throwing that out there. But
Oh, he'd be here forever now.
I would say this with Andre James, like the Raiders have a ton of cap room. Cap
Yeah,
space is not a problem. So like, and until they sign another guard, another starting offensive lineman, there's no rush to get rid of him because
yeah,
they're not up against the cap where they need to get rid of him so they can sign other players. Now, if they get to a point where they spend a ton of money in free agency and they need some flexibility, then yeah, I can see them moving on at that point. I don't think he's going to be the starter next year, but he's only got, I think, a year left on the deal, or maybe it's 2 years left on the deal, but they can get out of it pretty easily after 2025. I wouldn't just get rid of him to get rid of him. I wouldn't pencil him in as a starter, but like his
yeah,
depth on this team, yeah, it's a pricey veteran, but like again, cap space isn't a problem. So that you don't just get rid of players to get rid of players.
yeah.
Um, as far as Chase on, and this goes back to the Chase on Kuntz deal, like I don't expect both of them to come back because if I'm the agent for Chase on and the Raiders re-sign Kuntz, I don't want him going there. I want him to go to somewhere where he has a chance to get snaps and play.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see what the market is for him. As far as Diablo, again, what's the market? If Diablo doesn't have a market and you get him back for 1 year, $3 million, then fine. If he wants a multi-year deal and he's got a market that someone's going to pay him $5, $6, $7 million a year, let him walk. So a
Yeah.
lot of this is going to depend on what everyone else around the league thinks about these players. Um, again, for 1 year, $3 million, if he has to fight for a starting spot and he ends up being a special teams player for a year, that's fine.
I understand. So, okay, we got last one. We got Cass from Oregon who wants to talk about, wants to say like who are our top running backs because she doesn't believe in the running backs that we have. Um, I know Gentie's up there. I don't. I like Omari Hampton a lot. I like the kid out of I forgot his name. The kid out of Iowa. I think he's explosive as
Caleb
well.
Johnson.
And they had Calvin Johnson, and but there's a lot of running backs. Like I mean, the Raiders really, if they don't have to trade up to get a quarterback, I kind of want to see them take two guys. Like what I mean, they really don't have sign a veteran and just take two running backs. That they really could use some depth there. They don't have a lot of really good running backs there. I don't think the free agent class is very good. So this would be a good opportunity for the Raiders to get younger and get more explosive in the offensive backfield because I can't watch any of these running backs anymore.
Yeah, you see Najee Harris name mentioned for some reason to the Raiders quite a bit.
Why? I don't know
I don't
why.
know.
Yeah,
Like
I
if
don't
you
know
can
why
get him
either.
for cheap and he's part of like a Thunder and Lightning where he's the inside back
Can I
potentially,
get
but
can I get Connor instead from Arizona?
he just
Like,
signed a deal. He's staying there.
are you staying there? Oh,
He signed in the offseason.
I'd rather have him. Jeez.
Chuba Hubbard re-signed with the Panthers as well
Yeah.
towards the end of the year. But if you talk about the draft, like obviously Genty is his own guy. Some of the guys I like later on, Travion Henderson
Yeah.
at Ohio State is a guy that has a ton of speed. He's got some size. He split carries. Quinshon Judkins also kind of that home run back. Is he Alvin Kamara? Is he some version of Jameer Gibbs? He's kind of that speedy guy that can make a ton of plays, be a factor in the pass game. And then if you go down the line, two guys I really like are Sampson out of Tennessee. I think it's David or Dylan. I'm trying to remember. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I do like the back Sampson there. And then later on, like if you want to talk sixth, seventh round, like Damian Martinez out of Miami is a guy I've always liked. He's
Yeah.
big, he's physical. He measured in at 226 pounds, 5'11". Ran the ball at Oregon State, then he transferred obviously to Miami and played with Cam Ward. But like physical guy that can move the ball between the tackles. If the Raiders are going to try to duplicate what the Seahawks did back in their glory days, they have to get a big physical back that can run between the tackles, and that's where Martinez comes in. So I think the Raiders need that big back. I think they need kind of that speedy home run back. They could use another third down back. We don't know what this new staff or new regime thinks of Dylan Lobby. We don't know what's going to happen with Amir Abdullah. So the Raiders need to add several backs. I would say they need to add 2 or 3, whether it's the draft or free agency.
Yeah.
Like you could see them go get a back in free agency, go draft 2 backs, and just redo the whole room, because they're going to need running back by committee next year. They're going to need multiple guys back there, whether it's a veteran you sign or whether it's Aiden O'Connell or a rookie.
Yeah.
They have to run the ball. They cannot go through what they did last year, where they could not run the football, because then you can't play offense.
I'm thinking the best running back available is Kenneth Gainwell in free agency. Like I know Jordan Mason is a restricted free agent, but like, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, this is pretty gross. Yeah, they gotta handle it. They gotta handle it there. They gotta handle it. And I mean, Nick Chubb, if you want to throw a flyer at Nick Chubb, you know that could be a guy too as well. But I don't know. But the injuries, I don't know. It's a pretty bad group.
Well, you have Aaron Jones, who's out there. Jeff Wilson. If you go get Darrell Bevel, Jeff Wilson was with him in Miami. You can bring him over. AJ Dillon is a bigger back, physical guy from the Packers. Javonte Williams from the Broncos, if he can stay healthy, is another potential back. J.K. Dobbins, he's always hurt, but he had a good year with the Chargers. They may try to re-sign him. So there's a couple guys, out here. You can go get Cam Akers, you can get Kareem Hunt, but all these guys are part of a committee. Like, they're not going to be 300 carried back. So
I want the committee. So I want the committee. Yeah, I definitely want the committee. I definitely want the committee as far as that goes, and I think they probably will too. All right, Red Nation talked about some the Senior Bowl, the press conference stuff with Spytek and Carroll. They did mention Tom's name pretty often. Tom's running the football side. Just don't forget about that part. So we'll see what the Raiders do in the future as far as that goes. All right, take care, Ryan. Raiders, go Raiders as always.